Welcome to the Heat podcast. I'm your host, Carlo Navas, and with me today, I don't have any co-hosts. All my co-hosts, listen, it's an early pod for us. We're not streaming on twitch.tv/MIAHeapy, so if you're a loyal Twitch sub or stream or follow of our stream, we really appreciate that. Today's episode is going to be a little different. It'll be on the pod feed. If you're listening, you already know that. And for the YouTube audience that this will be uploaded to, shout out to you. And if you're not subscribed, why you're not doing that? We get so many views and the subscriber count doesn't match the traffic that we get. So if you love us and support us, please hit that subscribe button. You don't know how much that means to us. That algorithm is our number one enemy. And shout out to Blue Wire. They're the network that houses us. But there's no co-host. It's just me. But don't worry, I'm not just alone. I brought some help. I brought some backup. Listen, I've been trying to get this guy on the pod for I think over a year now, and it's been tough to schedule from the Bball Index, formerly of Nylon Calculus. Krishna Narsu. Did I say your name right? I usually ask prior for name pronunciation because I'm a little rocky. Did I do that right?
Yep, you did.
We move. Krishna, welcome to the man. How long have I been trying to? We've been trying to work this out for a minute.
Yeah, we've been trying to schedule for a little while, and it's like, either like, it's just been conflicts like either way. Like either you can't do it at that time or I can't do it. It's just, it's been a little while we've been trying to schedule this.
Listen, Krishna is I've been following, Krishna's work, and we've had Tim on, and I know that you work with Tim, and we've had him on to talk, Lakers Heat, and especially during the finals, that was a lot of fun. But listen, we have a lot to talk about today. We have a lot to get to. Preseason is well underway. We're almost done. Tonight, the Heat play the Hawks, which there's like a lot of players that are going to miss time. So that's not tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow, a lot of players are going to miss time. But Krishna, I had a tweet the other day that garnered a lot of attention by our buddy Duncan Smith. Kind of made fun of me for it on the TL. I said the Heat are title good, and the reason why I said that, and I've watched a lot of Heat basketball over the year. I've been covering them since back in the Big Three. This team plays in a way that I think is really conducive to all the positive things that they did during their finals run, while also kind of filling some holes. They play with like an intensity in the preseason that has been honestly legitimately surprising in a way that I feel that they're special. They're playing heads up. They're playing a lot quicker. They're really covering their deficiencies. They're playing more drop, Krishna, which to me is like one of the big things that I was criticizing them last year, because they were like a huge switching team because they had nobody at the point of attack to defend. You had Hero and Dragic and Nunn just getting absolutely slammed on every screen, and now, forcing Bam to kind of switch out and stuff like that. So they've really covered a lot of their holes. I think that I'm a big Kyle guy. Everybody knows that on the timeline. And I'm not saying that they're the favorites, but I do think after the Bucks and the Nets, they have the most championship equity, to steal the phrase from Zach Lowe. Am I crazy, Krishna? Am I nuts?
Well, so I guess I'll give you what my numbers are saying, and I'm going to give you what my personal opinion is, because I think they kind of diverge. So I kind of, last night I kind of tweeted my early, very informal projections that haven't really accounted for any age adjustments or anything like that. And the Heat were around, I want to say around like a 43-44 win team, based on that. And just so like that, if you're talking about as a title favorite, like, that's probably not good enough, but I'm personally much higher on them than kind of like my numbers are.
What?
I think what's interesting is like, so one of I think the reasons that they're not maybe projected as well as maybe they would have, if I was using a multi-year version here, is like Kyle Lowry last year had a decline in impact. So you can, whether you look at LeBron or EPM or kind of really across the board, he had a decline in impact.
Could you let our audience know what LeBron is? Because I know that some folks listening might not know. You do analytics, right? And you guys have created at Bball Index a lot of stuff. Can you maybe explain LeBron a little bit for the audience that might not know? Because I know that's huge.
Oh yeah, sure. So essentially, LeBron is a player impact measurement, and so it measures your impact on the team. And there's kind of two components to it. There's like a box score component, and there's an on-off. And the on off is essentially adjusted for all of your teammates. Um, so like if you play with, really bad teammates, it's going to take that into account. If you play with really good teammates, it's going to take that into account. Um, so yeah, I guess I don't know if you want me to go in
No,
more in.
I guess I want the audience to understand. And you guys were recently, I think executives voted you guys one of the 10 best metrics, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, I just kind of want the audience to know that this is like an encompassing metric that adjusts for a lot of noise, and it's really, really good. And like NBA teams are using, Krishna's numbers and stuff like that. So I just kind of want for the audience that doesn't know to get a picture of like what exactly, who you are and what exactly we're talking about.
yeah, sure. And one of the things with LeBron that it does is it kind of stabilizes a lot of the numbers. So, you can have, you have small sample sizes within. I mean, this tends to be more of an issue within the season, but once the season's finished, you have more of a large sample size, but we still have the stabilization. Essentially, what it does is it kind of adjusts for like the small samples that you see. So if like, during the season, if like you played like 5 games or 10 games or something, and your 3 point percentage is like 60%, it's like, we're gonna say, well, no, it's not really that good. But so yes, it's essentially a player impact metric, and the scale is kind of, it's ranges usually from around like -5 to around +5, and it's basically your impact on the team.
And
Uh,
Kyle's went down. Last season, he
and,
had a
and
down.
yes, Kyle's went down last season. And what's interesting is like if you look at kind of his box score stats, um, and I haven't actually we have a box score component which I haven't actually looked at, but if you look at like his true shooting percentage, his 3 point percentage, just all of his kind of basic stats, you don't really see it go down that much. So, but if you kind of look at the on off, that's where you see where his numbers kind of went down last year. And, I don't know if that's, again, I think that's like there's a lot of weirdness with the Raptors season playing in Tampa. So I think, and look, he is kind of getting older. So, like, certainly one explanation, probably the one you wouldn't want, is that, he declined because he's getting older. But I also like my personal belief right now is like I think our aging, like I think the way we think of aging curves got to kind of, I think we got to kind of change that perception. Like players are playing better older, and this is kind of true in every sport, like across sports, like in tennis or football or whatever, like whatever sport. It
Federer's
feels
40 and contends for slams. Like it's insane.
Yeah, yeah. And then like in football, you got like Brady at like 44. Like it feels like in every sport because of like, the advances in medicine and, training, and stuff like that, that like players are playing longer than ever. So I think, and like we saw that a bit with Chris Paul is like still chugging along.
I think
Um,
Wade's a good example of that because I mean before the surgery they did on his meniscus, I'm not a doctor, but from what I understand, they basically had to open and like fillet his like insides of his knee. And nowadays we have like really non-invasive procedures for those kinds of things, so players can play longer, their bodies last longer. They're just the medicine that we have now is a lot more um, less invasive, safer, helps guys not deteriorate as quick, even though the minutes have, and I think the load management is helping as well.
yeah, that's true. The load management. Yeah, I mean, everything is about like maximizing these players like as long as they can go. And I think that's probably better now than it was like 20 years ago or
I
something.
think the
So,
rules too, the game's a little less grueling, right? In terms of like, getting beat
right.
up and being physical and stuff like that. The space helps.
And yeah, well, some more spacing. So yeah, you're not getting beat up as much, and certainly more threes. I would think, like shooting a three certainly is less work,
Yeah.
and like
On
it's
the burst on
on
the
the
knees.
body than like going inside and among the trees and trying to finish and stuff. So certainly that might help too. Um, I haven't really seen any numerical evidence that our the aging kind of is the way players age have changed, but I think it'd be kind of it's kind of more of a recent phenomenon, so we might need you know more years or something like that. But yeah, so I mean, I think the explanation for Lowry is like either, he is actually getting older and like, his play is declining, or, he had a kind of a wacko season in Tampa where, things just kind of didn't go that well, and
On
like the
short
team was
rest, because
playing in
they
Tampa.
played game 7 till the second round, and then they had a turnaround real quick, and we saw a lot of the
Right.
bubble teams, sans Denver. I think Denver was really the only one that came out swinging, right? All those other teams that went deep in the bubble, they all had kind of a lag layover, Raptors and Tampa and all that. And Van Vliet kind of gave voice to some of the problems. It was like we didn't really know, whose responsibility was what. Like Kyle's here, but it's really like a passing of the torch, and it's like I didn't know, and Pascal didn't know, and there was some weirdness. And as he Twitter knows, I do love me my Raptors, so I got to see them quite a bit. I do think that there's a little bit of aging with him. I think defensively, I think that's typically the first thing to go. I think on offense, his EPM on offense last season, his estimated plus minus via dunks and threes, was really good last season. And I know that despite the Raptors having a really bad record, they were like had a positive point. They had like a top 10 point differential. Uh, pre All-Star break, before the trade stuff happened and they really went full tank. They had a positive point differential even though they were losing games. But Krishna, I don't think he needs to be. He was almost 13 All NBA like a season and a half ago, right? Like, I don't think he needs to be that level of player. I just think he needs to be, hover around 35 to 38% from three, give them some sort of downhill zip that they just haven't had at all. It's just Jimmy or bust. And be a guy that can defend the point of attack because they haven't had a competent defender. And in their finals run, they did a lot of hedge and recover. They did a lot of switching. Dragic survived, right? But, Kemba never really made him pay. And it wasn't until the Lakers where LeBron would just find the smallest dude and have him screen where it really became, untenable. But, I mean, that'll happen to anybody. But, their kind of shift to playing more drop, the kind of shift from Bam not triggering on the elbows as much. Before last season, it was all dribble handoff from the elbow, have a shooter fly off, Bam roll or do whatever. Now it's Kyle doing a lot more high screen and roll, Bam being low, right, and them running motion off of that, so he's in a more dangerous spot on the floor. He can catch a pass, take one dribble is to the rim, right, and if teams want to switch, like was the popular coverage on Miami last year, you switch any of their handoffs or anything, Bam's a lot more quick and willing to seal a guy and get an easy one. So I just think Kyle, he doesn't have to be this elite level guy, but the fact that he does push pace and everything that I said, he kind of restores natural order to a roster that I feel didn't have any. I still think they're missing a power forward and a guy at the wing, but everything, Krishna, just makes sense to me.
Right. I think it's interesting. I do think they're gonna need closer to like Kyle from like his like not certainly like I don't want to say they need like prime from like
The first Kawhi season, the first post Kawhi season, he was like absolutely that was the best season of his career in my opinion. Like I don't think he
okay.
needs to be that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. Although I think part of it is also about like what is the competition like in the East, and like right now, like so with Brooklyn, if like so Brooklyn's probably not gonna have Kyrie all season, right? Like if Brooklyn were fully healthy, I would say you probably do need closer to that
Oh
level
yeah.
of Kyle to compete with them, right? But Brooklyn's kind of a little lower now, and there's still Milwaukee too. I think I think like everybody else, I would probably kind of slot them in that group right after, you know, Brooklyn, Milwaukee. I think I think they could, upset Brooklyn or Milwaukee in the playoffs. Like I like them a lot better in the playoffs, I think, just
Me
because
too.
like the depth's not going to be as much of an issue and stuff. So and I also like I don't know how hard they're gonna push in the regular season. Although based on the preseason, it kind of looks like, like yeah, they're not gonna be like, oh
Krishna,
yeah,
that's crazy. They're like taking charges and arguing calls in the preseason,
yeah,
and they're playing quick. They're running hard. Bam's filling the lane hard. Kyle's heads up, outlet passing, sprinting on sometimes makes. It's been kind of surprising.
But then, like, what is Kyle Lowry? Like, he's all about like taking like I was saying earlier. I don't know if they're gonna push it that hard, but like it's Kyle Lowry. Like,
But think of the
and Jimmy.
makeup:
Like, of course, they're gonna push it in the regular.
Jimmy,
So
Kyle, PJ. They're like
yeah,
crazy
yeah,
people.
like
Yeah,
these guys are so like. So it might be more about whether they can hold up for all 82 games
that's
rather
my
than
thing.
and that's a big question mark. Like they are older, and I just don't know if they're gonna hold up. And Kyle's had like injuries, kind of numerous injuries at times. So like he's never been like I would like he's never been like the LeBron level durable. But well, before these last few
Yeah.
years, before
Well,
LeBron got hurt,
Krishna, I
but
joke that Kyle has an annual hand injury. At some point, his hand's gonna get messed up. That's just kind of the
yeah,
story. Yeah.
yeah, it does seem like it's a hand all
It's
the time.
always a hand, and especially in
It's
the
always
playoffs.
yeah.
I think there was like 3 out of 4 years he had like a busted hand, and one of those they won the title. But
Yeah, you're right. Wow, it really does seem like it's always a hand.
always a hand. AD used to be the wrist. You remember? AD was always the wrist,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
Kyle was always the hand, and that was always my gag.
yeah.
But like
So
the PJ depth concerns me more than Kyle because like whatever if I mean Kyle will be there for the playoffs and you know that he'll gut it out. PJ PJ's at an age and has very intense mileage on him that I'm more concerned with PJ than the other dudes because I think Jimmy, and I think last season totally ran out of gas, and you saw in that postseason just had no lift on his layups or jumpers or anything. I mean, he was absolutely spent. I mean, he had to do everything for this team. But I think with the full offseason of rest, and I think they'll manage his minutes. I think Spo is pretty good at that, historically. But PJ is the guy that I worry about because if he pulls a hamstring or he gets hurt, that they don't really have a plan B there. I mean, their backup power forward is Markieff Morris, which he has not looked good to me at all in the preseason. And I guess you could kind of lean into Jimmy at the 4, but you kind of get some issues there with some size and some kind of mileage on Jimmy that I'm not sure you like, and those lineups haven't been great. So I'm less concerned with Kyle's bill of health. I'm more concerned with PJ and what they're going to do with that 4 spot.
right, and well, I think the thing with PJ is like he was so important to that Bucks run, and yet like he was pretty bad offensively. Like there's no way around
He's
it.
been good this preseason, though. I will say that.
Um,
For the Heat, he's been
yeah,
good. That's been kind of surprising. I expected him to be a negative.
I think the thing with him is like what's he gonna shoot from three the whole season? Like if he's and the thing is his threes are always like wide open, so he has to make them, otherwise he's totally kind of useless
I
on
think
offense.
minimum he
That's
has to
the
hit him
occasional
at a
offensive
40% clip.
rebound.
Minimum 40% from the corner. Like, I don't think they could survive if it's not that.
Yeah, exactly. And like because like he'll get the occasional offensive rebound, but like outside of that, he's not going to do anything else on offense. And our impact metrics were not kind on PJ's offense last year. He
Bucks
was
fans don't like him, man. It's kind of weird that Bucks fans kind of clown him for not being good, and it's like usually those kind of guys on a title team, you know what I mean? Like they'll ride with Bobby Portis, but like PJ is just like, oh, PJ, right? Like I made a Markieff Morris joke in the timeline. I was like, man, how is Markieff Morris providing less on offense than Iguodala? And they're like, surprised you're not saying that about PJ. And I was like, damn, what PJ do to you?
well, I do think PJ is like so versatile defensive. Like he can definitely like he's gonna add so much on defense. I guess I just question what his off like
Yeah, no,
if
it's
he's
fair.
actually hurt the Heat on offense, and but then at the same time, like his defense, like that the Heat lineups that they can throw on defense could be they could be like best in the league level, right? Like they could be that great,
Krishna,
especially when you
Jimmy,
got
Kyle,
yeah,
Oladipo, PJ, Bam.
yeah. I mean that's like that could be incredible, and actually I had the stat on Bam that I found interesting. So he's like one of the most schematically versatile centers, essentially. So I have the stat, and it kind of measures like your versatility on pick and roll, and it's based on some of the second spectrum data, and he's one of the most heavy switching centers.
Yep.
Um, but he's just so versatile and like the different ways he can play the pick and roll. So I think um yeah, you can do so much with him on defense in the playoffs. It's so I really think like
What was the
there.
number? Was there like a number?
Oh
Of,
yeah, yeah. I gave that, and let me.
I was
Yeah.
excited. I was like, ooh.
So he was, let's see, I believe he was like fifth last year. Although some of the players ahead of him um, were kind of more because they were playing some of the other coverage types a bit more. But so he was kind of the highest in terms of the switching bigs.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So
I mean, what choice do you have when if and I did a little video breakdown on my timeline where the first game of the preseason, very first defensive possession for Miami. Trae Young gets the ball up top. They run kind of a little side dribble handoff. Miami switches that. Then the Hawks kind of swing the ball up to Trae Young on the opposite side. I think it's Collins comes to screen for him up top, and Trae really likes his screens like 2-3 feet outside of the 3-point line. So, he has a clean pull up for that three or kind of the change of pace acceleration. And and Kyle's on Trae, that was an automatic switch for Miami. Automatic. Because they don't want Dragic or Hero or none on that island with Trae because they're going to get beat and now you're in rotation. And that was a no questions asked switch for Miami. And the first possession was Kyle going over on the screen, Bam staying low, not Brook Lopez low. He was up to 3-point line, but he was able to kind of contain the roller, and then was eventually able to come out and contest the shot when Atlanta kind of moved the ball back and forth. And man, that just gives Miami, because Miami was like one of the worst rebounding teams in the league last year. Part of that was the switching, right? I think Bam was even under 10 rebounds, for the first time in a while. So but I think in the playoffs, Krishna, that just having that in your back pocket against like a Brooklyn, if they want to run like a 4-5 pick and roll with Durant or something, now you have Bam able to switch that on either side, and I think you're okay with it.
He can switch it, or he can even kind of come up to the level of screen and not switch. Like he's just so versatile with kind of the different ways he can play that. So I think I'm really excited to like see kind of like what their defense looks like this year, but I think I'm a little more skeptical on offense. Like I think you were saying 12th on offense.
I think if everything goes right, they could.
If everything goes right, I'm probably a little more skeptical of that. But I mean, like who knows with like Tyler, if he's like I don't know what to expect out of him, honestly. Like
me neither, man.
Like he's kind of like, I guess, their X factor. Like I don't think he's got really star potential, but like I don't think we need that.
How do you feel about this comp for him? I've said since they drafted him, I said Lou Williams without the free throw rate.
Yeah, I like that.
That's what I see him as.
Yeah, that's gonna help you offensively for sure, right? Like,
I mean, he has to get there. Like, I think for all the warts, and I'm really critical of him, I do think he's pretty good at getting to spots he likes. He just can't get separation, which is why he can't get to the line. But I think like Lou, he has a lot in the bag, and now he's added that little sidestep three, which I think is going to be really helpful. And if the floater's legit, I think he can kind of replicate a little bit of that.
Yeah. I think the question though is like is that going to happen? Like, when is that happening? Because players develop at different rates, right? Like it could be like you see Julius Randle last year, right? So like you can never really predict what a player is going to be. But like I don't like this Heat team doesn't really need him to be a star, right?
Nope.
So like they just need him to like positively contribute in a way that can like complement like their starters and give them good bench production.
I think he just needs to help the bench not drown, because last season,
exactly, give them good bench production. So like and like that's one of the big questions with the Heat this year, right? Like, is their bench going to be good enough? I think that's where I'm kind of skeptical.
Do you know the on-off stuff with Jimmy last year? I know that you're a big Jimmy guy. Do you know how bad it was for Miami?
Oh no! Well, how bad?
So they were +7 net with Jimmy on the floor, net rating with Jimmy on the floor, right? So the year prior, the year that they made the finals, they were breaking even. They were just like they were like plus 0.1 or minus 0.1, right, with Jimmy off. So they were just kind of surviving, and that was when Tyler had a good year. Last season, they were -7. So they would just totally careen the other way when Jimmy sat. And they would just drown, right? So then Jimmy had to play more minutes than he needed, right? And then he would just get, and that's why I think he was kind of gassing the play. And on both ends. And I know that, his work on the nail and his work as a help man was just freaking outstanding, but
Yeah,
they were drowning.
well, that's why he was what was he, like fifth in LeBron, I believe, or fourth or something. Actually, one of the impact metrics I've been working on, he was like first or something like that last year.
Let's
which
go. Love to see it.
Yeah, it was it wasn't the finished product, but I was like, wow, that's interesting. But yeah, like yeah, I mean that's exactly why. Like, you want to know why his LeBron was so high last year? There you go. Uh,
He was like
so
fifth in defensive estimated plus minus too.
yeah,
Just like
yeah, I think like every impact metric loved him last year, and that's why like where did I see him on like ESPN's rank? He was like 13th or 14th or something
yeah.
like that, and I was like, wow, that's kind of low.
Would
Um,
you have him ahead of Paul George? I know Paul George had a great year last year, but like you.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's a fairly close. I'd have him ahead of Tatum, by the way.
Oh, me too. I yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think definitely before last year, I would have had him ahead of PG. PG had a really good year last year.
Redeemed
But
himself in the playoffs too. He needed that, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the PG certainly, if I was choosing one, he certainly closed the gap a little. I might still take Jimmy, but I think he's got an argument. You could argue over Dame just because of like. I mean, I get the question with Dame. Yeah,
I like what I'm hearing, Krishna. I like it. You
that's a
speaking
hot
my
take.
language.
But I mean, the thing, like, at least based on some of these impact metrics, man, Dame's defense is like really, really, really bad. And like Jimmy's not nowhere close to the offensive player, but at least if you're like if you really believe Dame's defense is that bad, which I don't know that it is, like I don't know that I would say he's like one of the 10 worst defenders in the NBA. Maybe he is.
His
But
lineups certainly don't help. They don't do him any favors, especially
yeah, they don't do
when
any
Nurk is not
favors.
there.
I mean, this is if I was making the case, it would be based on Dame's
I
defense.
said this after the finals run, by the way. Like when we were doing our like preseason pods or like our yeah, all that. I was like, what's the argument that Jimmy's not top 10 right now? Like I'm being real. Like I'm like, have him ahead of Tatum, have him again a Dame. Now Dame had, obviously like an MVP level year, and Jimmy got outscored by Bryn Forbes in the playoffs. So, it's a little that clown face gif, but there's certainly an argument there that he is at least one of the 12 best players in the league still. Should have been, by the way. I mean, people like Lowe and Arnovich were saying that he has like a legit All NBA first team case last season. And I'm totally there. Like, absolutely. If not for health, I think he makes it. If not for
I
the
think
COVID.
it probably his playoffs kind of hurt his kind of perception, because like if you look at where it was like after that bubble playoffs and kind of what he did, and then like last year, and to me like it was a really bad playoffs, but it's what, 5 games.
Krishna,
you
what?
know
So you have a more national perspective, right? So like us, in Miami, and we're like oftentimes making excuses, but excuses are oftentimes explanation, as Dan Lebatard says. But you have the bubble, you have this really short layoff, you have everything I just told you about the on-off numbers and his responsibility on both ends of the floor. And in the playoffs, I think he looked kind of gassed. And I think Duncan the same. And I mean, I thought the tell with Duncan was he'd set a screen, then flare, and then he wouldn't move after that, which is like, and he played every single game for 2 straight seasons. I mean, I don't know how fair it is to take that playoffs. And that's why I'm asking you, like, like, are we just being Homer fans that we're just making excuses, or like, do we have like something legitimate? Like, hey, like that's not real. That's not who he is, and that's not who they are.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, like, as with all things, like for me personally, I don't like to look at like just one playoffs. Like the way to look at the playoffs is really you got to look at like a 3-year sample. And so, like, if you took Jimmy's 3-year sample, he would look a lot better, right? Like, he probably isn't as good as he was in 2019-20. Like, he might have been like the second or third best player in the playoffs that year or whatever. But
Nova.
he's what?
He was
Yeah,
Nova. Yeah. It was,
yeah.
wasn't even the leading scorer, by the way. That was Dragic. Dragic was
No,
Miami's leading
that's true.
scorer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like in terms of overall impact, and that finals like was just incredible. But he might not necessarily be that good, but he might not be, but he's not as bad as he was last year. So it's kind of like somewhere in the middle. But in general, I kind of think Jimmy's underrated nationally. Like I think, like I was kind of surprised to see where he landed on some of these like rankings. But I think that could just also be like the way he finished last year. Like it was just not a great finish. And certainly like being covered by Giannis, like that's Giannis incredible defensive player. Like that's hard. And you could blame like part of that like is his teammates, right? Like you got to be able to get him better shots. And you know I like last year in the playoffs, like none of them were really helping out either, right? Like it was just a bad series, right?
Bam
All
was
around, so.
awful. I think Bam skates more than Jimmy. I thought Bam was just
Bam was, yeah,
awful.
I think that's the one where Bam was like really, really bad. Yeah.
Bam was bad. Duncan, I think, was. Out of all of them, I give Duncan a huge pass because I mean he's just been so consistent for them, right? And if they're switching, that 2-5 DHO, like that stops being his responsibility, and that has to be Bam punishing the small guy, right? And he just never did that. And then as far as Jimmy, those guys weren't hitting shots, right? So when he would have, in the bubble, it was like, okay, well, who is George Hill guarding? I want him to screen for me. And Jimmy would just bully these small dudes. Milwaukee, credit to Bud, we're kind of showing recovering, and Jimmy didn't have the legs to punish that. And that's really whenever Bryn Forbes was on the court, I mean, they were trying to get him in pick and roll, and he was show recovering. Jimmy couldn't get by, and that coupled with Bam just no showing, and then all the it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And I mean, I think they should be better than this year's playoffs too, especially now that you have PJ. Like, I'm really fascinated to see their defense. Really, like their defense, could potentially be as good as well, maybe not as good as the Bucks last year, but it could be at that level.
I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think like their upside defensively is? Because I'm like, for them, their win conditions, to be a legit threat, they have to be a minimum top 5 defense. And I think they can get there. I think they can get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think their offense is going to really be like they're not going to win if they make the finals or if they have a deep run. It's not going to come with, their offense.
I will say this, Krishna, if Duncan Duncan was, the finals run year went from historic shooting season, like historic. I think the number was 1.6 points per possession off Bam and Duncan DHO, which is just like that's like insane. Or it was close to 2. It was like something ridiculous. I remember Nikias, shout out to Nikias, tweeted that out at one point. And last season was just a really good shooter, not a historic shooter. And Miami's offense nosedived because I think they were 7th the bubble year in offense, right? Just that whole regular season they were 7th, and they had, I think, 5 guys shooting over 40% from 3. It was Nunn, it was Duncan, it was Tyler, it was Olynyk, and it was somebody else and Dragic. So if they can get Duncan up to 42 like he was, right? Like a really, really good Duncan shooting season. If Tyler can get back to a 40% or 39% shooter, if Kyle can hover around, if Kyle has a good shooting season, right? Like 37, 38%, and if they can get one of these other guys to pop from 3, I really think that they can. I really, really think that's going to help them. If they play a little quicker, they can kind of offset the Jimmy Bam negative spacing because Jimmy and Bam do cut and move really well. Yep. So that's I'm banking on that going right, so they can be from that 12 to 10 range if everything goes right. But I agree, the offense is what's going to be I'm going to watch out like a hawk. How are they performing? What are they doing? How is their spacing?
I guess kind of also what I'm expecting is like I am kind of expecting PJ to be in those closing lineups, and I just like if like Tyler, is like in the closing lineup instead of PJ, I think you'll definitely have way more offensive like
Oh, I
firepower.
don't see that happening.
But like like I just see PJ closing, and I mean I just don't I don't believe in him offensively. Like I don't think even if he's shooting decently from the
Wait,
corners.
who do you have them closing?
Yeah, let's see. I actually had so actually I'm gonna pull up some numbers for you too, because I was kind of
Love it.
using our lineup creator tool,
Mm-hmm.
and fooling around with a few of their different lineups. And I think the one I was kind of looking at here was Lowry, Duncan, Jimmy, PJ, and Bam.
So I love that lineup, but Spo does not like to close with Duncan.
Okay, so you think who
I
do you
think
think?
Tyler's there for Duncan. Now, I would like Duncan closing, but Spo always goes for ball handling over just shooting like that. And it's just been, if you look in the bubble playoff run, it was always Tyler closing. Last year in the regular season, it was always Tyler closing, even though Tyler played like frankly like shit. And even if Duncan would have, like Duncan has to be like on one for him to close, which is I don't understand why, but Spo has always, even since the Big 3 days, always valued who can put the ball on the floor and who can make a play, rather than how is my spacing optimized.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess if Tyler is closing, then it's got to be like he's like that 3 point percentage is gonna have to be
Has to
up,
be.
right? Like,
Now maybe
like
they change. Maybe with a lot to play for in the regular season, maybe they don't go that way. But just historically, that's kind of what Spo's
right.
always done with him.
The other thing is if you're playing PJ, I feel like Duncan has to be out there. Like it's almost like you know negating PJ's kind of bad spacing. And the interesting thing is like, so you might look at PJ's 3 point percentage and be like, oh, that's not that bad. But per our metrics, actually, he's had like the easiest 3 point shot quality in the league for like the last like 3 or 4 years,
Thank you,
or somewhere
James. Thank you,
something like
James. Thank you, Giannis.
that. Yeah, well, yep, there, yeah, exactly.
That'll
So
that'll do it.
yeah, that'll do it. That'll definitely do it. And last year, I believe you saw a dip in his 3 point percentage, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
He missed James.
yeah, but basically, like my thing is like if PJ is gonna be out there, then I feel like you need Duncan out there. Just because of his movement and like his shooting, just you kind of like need the opposite.
I
If that
agree.
makes sense.
I was kind of worried because I had some concern with the Ariza when they kind of signed him, because Miami Spo offenses just don't really park a dude in the corner. That corner gets filled with a movement shooter, right? I mean, in the Big 3, years he did, right, and kind of early on, he'd put Bosch in the corner and they would run like Dwayne stuff, right? But now, modern Spo stuff, since Dwayne left to Chicago, they've really kind of shifted from, okay, that corner is vacated and a guy is going to appear there, right? So that help guy is not coming from there, right? So that's kind of been their system, which has helped, right? Because then, the help has to come from different places and it becomes a lot more difficult to defend them, especially when they have, a couple negative shooters on the team. When they got Ariza and Iguodala, that made it easier because they have to be in the corner. So that help guy, that help guy is cheating all the time, has a foot in the paint every single time they trigger any action. So Iguodala was just a disaster, to the point that Andre was doing the Ben Simmons thing where he was just standing in the dunker spot waiting for a dump off pass and then kicking it back out. Right? So that was their whole lot. That was like really the Achilles heel of their offense. They bring in Ariza, who I'm like, okay, well, he's a better shooter, right? Theoretically, but you're still going to have the issue where, well, now you have this dude that has to be parked in the corner. Now they tried to do, they did some empty side horn sets, like with the guard screening, for Bam and Jimmy and stuff like that. So they did some interesting things to kind of create space and movement. But at the end of the day, they can empty a side, but one of those corners is going to have PJ parked, which
Yeah, exactly. He has to be in one of those
has to
corners.
be.
Like he's not going to be anywhere else. So,
That's what I'm concerned about, because now they have to accommodate him in a way that we just saw not work with PJ, with Ariza, and with Andre.
Do you think there's any way PJ doesn't close? I guess that's another good question, because I've just been assuming PJ is going to close the whole year.
They don't have another four. It's either him. It's either move Jimmy to the 4, and I don't think Jimmy likes playing the 4, because what you could do is
that's not going to happen in the regular season, I think, right? Like, that's fair.
You could do like Kyle, Tyler, Duncan. You can go 3 guards, Jimmy, Bam. I think against certain teams you can do that, but I just and like they had Jimmy play a lot of 4 last season, and he had to guard up a lot, and I felt bad for him. Like they had him guarding Karl Anthony Towns sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they were switching him on. So,
but again, I think that's something you probably would want to do more in the playoffs. Like I don't like
the look though. Jimmy. I don't like, if they're going to be good, like if they're doing that, something went wrong and they can't win. Because like if you're scrambling to kind of, okay, well, how do we get enough shooting while not falling apart on defense? That I start getting concerned, because that just like if they're running 3 guards plus Jimmy, I was like, well, they did not, because they need to, Krishna, I think it's like consensus, they need to make a move at the deadline or at the buyout market to get a real power forward. Because like Markieff Morris cannot play with Dwayne Dedmon. Like that's just been a disaster. Markieff Morris is just not good. I don't even know how. LeBron should have won an award for making Markieff Morris like like making people think he's good.
He's not good.
He's not good.
I mean, they have real power forward issues. Like I guess they like. I don't think PJ is gonna cut it.
I don't. I mean, I think he can for spots, but like I wouldn't like him to start, or I wouldn't like him to play a ton of minutes. I mean, like, my guy has always been like Harrison Barnes. Obviously, like, that's pretty unrealistic. But, like, a guy like him fits perfectly. It's why I really wanted Gallinari when they had that chance to trade for him at the deadline. Like, I just think they need a moderately switchable, not horrible defender at the 4 that can shoot and play offense. And maybe, I mean, I think let's now put the ball on the floor, but at the very least shoot and, like, survive on defense. So, you can have a minutes eater that's, not Markieff Morris.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I don't think PJ closing, like, then it's just you're like 4-on-5 on offense, and I don't really like
that. Maybe he shoots great. Maybe they get him great shots and he knocks a bunch of shots. The preseason it's certainly been fine, but again, preseason. So let's
yeah. First, and, well, the other thing is, like, I think again that shot quality, right? Like he's really only taking wide open shots. So that's the other thing. Like sometimes you want that corner guy to be able to take like at least semi-contested threes, and like PJ's not even really going to do that.
The issue with PJ too is that you can't even run like some handoff stuff with him, right? If he's the handoff man, if Duncan, because teams are just going to switch that, because you can hide anybody on PJ. So it's like any advantage that you would have by playing him at the 4, you kind of lose, because they'll just hide a dude, and you can't even. So what Miami did a ton was when they would hide players on Kelly or whatever, they would just kind of run handoffs, right? And then Kelly put people in the torture chamber. They can't do that, right? So because now you're just gonna switch that, and like Duncan can't beat a switch and PJ can't beat a switch. So now you've just wasted 6 seconds on a shot clock. And you still have the same issue. So
I think Jimmy at the 4 is like a line. So like I know you're worried, like that would wear him down, I wouldn't want to do that the entire regular season. But like if I'm thinking the playoffs, and again, this is where I guess I really feel like they seem to be a better team for like the playoffs now. Like I feel like you could play him at the 4 in the playoffs.
It depends against who though, because against Milwaukee,
obviously matchups dependent. Yeah, like I
think you can get away with it against Brooklyn and against Boston. I think Atlanta gets dicey.
But you might be able to get away with PJ against the Bucks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So like it's definitely all matchup dependent. Like obviously, like I think Boston, Brooklyn, you definitely can. Those might be better lineups for them against those 2 teams.
I'd rather play the Nets, as presently constructed than the Bucks if I'm Miami, and I might even say that even if they have Kyrie, just because I think playing the Nets simplifies their defense a little bit. And I think that the Nets defense just isn't going to be good. So Miami's going to actually be able to offset some of their bad offense. because they do run a bunch of motion stuff, and that's really where you get guys like Kyrie and Harden in trouble, right?
Yep.
Not so much one-on-one. So I think my kind of crazy wacko take is I just rather straight up play the Nets and the Bucks.
I agree. I think they do match up better against Brooklyn than, like, especially if you just like look at the individual matchups and stuff like that. Like,
if Oladipo can give you something
backcourt to defend Kyrie and Harden, right? Like, so I definitely agree with that. And especially now with like Kyrie up in the air, like we don't even know if he's going to be there.
do you feel like he'll get, I don't think he's going to get vaccinated. I kind of feel like he's the kind of dude that he's a willing martyr. You know what I mean?
I mean, he could retire.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. Let me tell you something.
I kind of think that could happen. You know.
I also thought Ben Simmons would not show up to work. Krishna, how do you show your face? I don't get. I wouldn't be able to do that. You make a stink like that and then just show up. I wouldn't be able to. I just
Simmons.
Can't. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I have my theory as to he's showing up to make shit uncomfortable there. Like he's showing like that's staying at home and away from the team isn't going to get himself traded, right? Like he's not going to get. If you're at home, like the team's just going to be like, well, you're out of sight, out of mind. Like we don't have to think about you, and we can just focus on ourselves. Now he's in that locker room, and he can like, it's going to be awkward, and like it's going to probably hurt their chemistry. And like honestly, like it feels like he's showing up to like if he pulls like the Harden playbook where it's like, hey, like they actually play him and he's gonna like actively be
Dog
like, hey, look, I'm not trying.
Jimmy did it the best, man. Let me tell you something. Jimmy went in, made a massive mess of everything, did a whole media tour about the mess he did, and got traded to a good team.
Yeah, that might be the best way to do it. I can't imagine Simmons going to.
He
Jimmy.
Doesn't have it.
He doesn't have it. Like he's like not going to start a fight with a teammate.
Do you remember what Dragic did to get traded? Do you remember that?
No, what was that?
Dragic made a stink at practice. Just straight up told reporters like, "This place sucks. I don't want to be here." Like he just flat out torpedoed their season by doing that. And he's like, "Yeah, I want to get out of here. I don't like it here. I don't like these people. I want to play for a different team." Like the adorable professional Goran Dragic just totally did that in the middle of the Suns trying to decide.
That's the only way to get like traded. Like that's the only way. Simmons being at home and like was not going to get himself traded. Like the Sixers are just going to be like, cool, just stay at home, and we're going to have really good chemistry because we'll have a bunch of guys who want to be here. And like I honestly think Simmons showing up is going to make the Sixers outlook worse until they trade him or something. Like I don't see how that works. Like how, and especially if the guy is like if he pulls the Harden playbook where he's like out there and he's like not at all trying, and like given Simmons issues where it's like Simmons needs to be trying, otherwise he's a like just imagine Simmons not trying in a game and like.
But look at Kevin Love, dude. It hasn't worked for Kevin.
Yeah, that's true.
Kevin's intentional 3-second violation is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. It's like God, literally one of my favorite. Yeah. No, he listen.
It's a lot easier to do that when the team's not very good and you're not trying to do anything, like the Sixers, like if Simmons pulls that, like let's say Simmons just stands in the lane for like 10 seconds and he just doesn't move.
That's kind of what he does anyway.
Like, yeah, like that's you have a guy in the middle of his prime with Embiid who's like you have to win with him now, and like
it's funny,
that's gonna be interesting. I'm like
I love the NBA, man. We get I mean between the Simmons and Kyrie thing, it's like it's so fun, and then Minnesota's the next mess that's gonna happen. I can't wait for Minnesota again. Minnesota part 2. Whatever happens with Cat, God knows what'll happen over there. Krishna, I know that I've taken a bit of your time. Okay, on the way out, what do you, for you, right? You basketball index expert, right? Authority on basketball. For Miami to be a title contender, what do you think their win conditions have to be for the season?
Win conditions as in like what season?
Like what do they like a couple things like boom, boom, boom. What are thresholds you think that they need to reach if they're going to contend?
Well, I think you're gonna have to start with like they're gonna have to be a top 4 seed because let's be honest, you're not gonna win. You're not gonna succeed being, without home
I think you
court.
could be 5. I think you can beat whatever team's on the 4 spot, right?
Uh, I think it's gonna be hard to win like 3 road playoff series.
I
I
mean,
mean, it
what
depends.
if 4's like Boston or like I don't know. I'm not. Are you a big Atlanta? I don't really believe in Atlanta. Do you?
Um, what's interesting is like all of my projections are like really high on Atlanta. Like all my numbers and like, yeah, I'm like personally, I kind of thought they might take a little bit of a step back, but
That happens
I
with
don't
young
know.
teams.
I'm maybe underselling them. One of the things is they were super injured last year.
Yeah.
They were one of the most injured teams. I think Owen Phillips in one of his newsletters,
Oh, he's
he
great.
published,
Shout out to him.
yeah,
Oh man.
and I believe they were the second most injured team behind Brooklyn, or second or third in terms of wins lost between
Do you
all their
remember where
players.
Miami was? That's probably like a tough ask because I mean they missed a lot of games because of COVID.
I don't have that.
So I put you on the spot there. My bad.
I could, yeah. I
That would
mean, I
have
have
been
to
more.
look it
We
up.
all know it was a lot. Listen, if you watch the team, you know that was
Yeah.
excruciating.
So I don't know. I mean, um, I do kind of think Atlanta's got like depth where I could see them being a good regular season team. I don't know that I necessarily believe in the playoffs, like but although they made the conference finals last year, I guess so.
Very very weirdly though.
Yeah, very weirdly.
They got the Knicks and they got a wounded Duck Sixers team.
Right, and I know this is going to be sounding like a weird take, but like I don't think they were better than the Sixers. Like
Oh
if
no,
you
no
take
way.
that series, like the Sixers win that series most of the time. It was just a really weird
I mean, the
series.
Sixers almost won, and Ben Simmons passed from the basket.
Yeah, exactly, and like the blown 20-point leads, and hey, maybe probably with a different coach they win that series.
That was a recipe. That was like the perfect storm recipe for disaster because like that team had so many issues and so many warts. They were so expected to win, and I don't think that they thought it was a possibility that they could lose until like right in that fourth quarter. Because I think we all thought there's no way Atlanta's going to win this. Atlanta never wins it. Like, what team ever wins that series? Like, what underdog team ever wins that series? And you get the Knicks, who, by the way, I think the Knicks are kind of dog shit, and I think that last season was so fake. I think Toronto is going to be better than them in the regular season. I don't really understand. Maybe it's media love for New York. I don't know. I think it's so weird. Randall went from 18% pull-up threes to 40-something% pull-up threes. It says their 3-point percentage defense, everything about what they did seems fake. And I think people just want the Knicks to matter, and I just don't really get it. I just don't.
I think if they'd returned the same team, I would definitely agree that like they were.
Well, you're a big Evan Fournier guy. Like, what do we
regression? No, I just think adding Kemba and like I do think they got a little bit better. I don't know, like, but they might not be better in the stand. Like, I don't think they're gonna.
I mean, we talk about Miami depending on dudes that are not healthy. I mean, you're asking.
Oh yeah,
Kemba.
No, I mean, look, I don't. The Knicks aren't
team.
going to be the 4 seed again. The Knicks aren't going to be the 4 seed. I'm not saying like like to me. Like last year, they were kind of like they definitely overperformed.
They will be the worst team in their division, I think.
They will be. They could be a better team, but win like way less games this year, relatively speaking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like I think they did get better, but they're not gonna.
I don't think Randall's gonna be as good. You don't think Randall's gonna take like a hit? You think Randall's gonna like maintain that level? It's the shooting for me. It's the shooting that doesn't feel real.
Randall's percentages don't feel real, but like I remember saying this about Brandon Ingram, and like his were real. I
was wrong about him too.
Yeah, so I mean, I would bet that they would, decline. Like I don't think Randall's going to keep up the shooting, but like you never know. Like Ingram is an example of somebody who kept it up.
It's just the jump was so high that I'm like,
it was, yeah.
It felt it's kind of like Draymond, right? And then Draymond has like really just not until recently, shook the reputation of being a shooter, right? Because like he had that one really good year, right? It went from really bad to really really good.
That's a great point. Yeah, like he went down back to his like normal percent. Yeah, I guess with
as a younger player too.
After the Ingram jump, like and Ingram's free throw percentage jumped an insane amount too. Like, that, what was it, a few years back, right?
But Randall was more of a finished product than and again, guys like, I think Kyle Lowry is a great example of you're never a finished product in this league. Jimmy, another one, right? So,
right.
But, Randall was a lot further along his development as an offensive player, right? That it feels, I don't know, it just very rarely clicks in that way so dramatically.
At his age.
At his age, with that shot profile.
Right. No, it was definitely like
bizarre.
It was definitely much later, like definitely more of it definitely feels like more of a fluke than Ingram, right? But I guess I'm just giving that as an example because,
and you'd be right,
I'm scarred by that because I thought like I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a fluke. And then, like, he shoots that the next year. I'm like, oh well, I guess I was wrong there. So,
so that's, listen, there's a lot to look forward to in these playoffs, Krishna. I know I told you 40 minutes max. We went an hour. I had a lot of fun. I've been wanting to do this forever. What do you want to plug? Where can people find your work? What if they want more of you and all the great information that you guys provide? Where can they find it, and where can they find you?
You can find all my work at Bball Index, and my Twitter handle at knarsu3 is where you can find me. And our Bball Index Twitter handle is, I'm admittedly looking it up right now.
At the Bball Index _ between the and Bball Index.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was a the in there or not.
No, trust me, I feel you. I have to check our email all the time. I was like, is it Miami Heat Beat or Heat Beat Miami? So trust me, I feel you.
Yeah.
What do you guys provide over there for people that may not be familiar? And Mr. # Fancy Stats.
Yeah, so we have all sorts of stats. We have various grades. So we have like a playmaking grade, perimeter shooting grade. We have various shot type talent. For example, we have like floater talent, pull up 3 talent. And this is, we're essentially measuring like your ability at each of these different skills. We also have a really cool lineup creator tool that you guys should, that's really fun to play around with. You can plug in different guys and see what the spacing of the lineup is. That uses our catch and shoot talent grades. For example, the Heat spacing the lineup we were talking about earlier with Lowry, Duncan, Jimmy, PJ, and Bam, spacing is in the 59.7 percentile.
There we go. Look at that.
So there's a little stat for you.
Little get informed. Bball-index.com. You can find them on Twitter. You can find Krishna's work. They're good. We've had at Tim NBA on a couple times already. Who also works with you guys. He's terrific. You guys are terrific. Krishna, thank you so much for joining us. If you guys are listening, remember Hangover Time post-game show after every single Heat game, even preseason. We're bringing it to you. Weird Al pregame show coming back at you next week. So get ready for that. We're really excited. Remember, we're dropping those jerseys that we debuted on Hangover Time, right? Those custom KC Bannerman jerseys. You want that? And remember, you got to wait. We have our website relaunching very, very soon. So be on the lookout for that at heatbeatmiami.com. We have lots and lots of great stuff planned for this season. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to our Twitch subs. Thank you for our YouTube subscribers. I know I hammer this home a lot. You guys make everything we do possible. You help us keep the lights on. You don't understand what that means to us. We're very proud that everybody who works here gets paid. And we're building really, really great things coming this year. We're growing, and it's our 9th season doing Miami Heat Beat. So thank you to our wonderful audience. And again, listen, season 9, baby. Let's go. We're excited. So remember to follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff.